Hello and welcome to the Noahide court. We're reading from the excellent work of Rabbi Yoel Shwartz, that you are my witnesses, an ironclad Jewish legal argument why it is incumbent upon a Jewish person to teach the Torah to the whole world. Anybody who has a willing heart and wants to listen, a Jew should be a light unto the nations. So, well, the question is, why were the Jews put in exile? It says, indeed, as I live, and as my glory fills the earth. So the Emek Davar, one of the great Lithuanian rabbis, explains this verse and says that by means of the decree of the exile that happened because of the spies coming and giving a bad report, Moses said, send spies to the land. Let's check out the land before we go in the land of Israel. For 40 years in the desert, or it actually was in the early days of those 40 years, it was time to go into the land. He said, let's check it out. He sent princes of the tribes. They came back and said, they're giants, we can't take it, it's too much for us. And there was a great wailing and crying on that night in the desert. That night in the dark of the desert, the children of Israel cried out. It was the 9th of the month of Av. And God heard their cries and said, I wanted to give you the most precious gift. And you don't want it? You don't believe that if I send you, you can take it? Because you're crying on this night, the 9th of Av, I'm going to have you be crying on many nights on the 9th of Av. That's the night that the first temple was destroyed, the second temple was destroyed, and other national tragedies happened. So because of our sin, if we hadn't sinned, we would have gone into the land in a second. All of the sins that the children of Israel, the complaints, and so forth, that you can find in the 5 books of Moses. And it's a bestseller. It's available at your bookstore. So we were scattered among the nations. Also in the book of Ezekiel it says, therefore I've raised up my hand to scatter you among the nations and to spread you throughout the lands of the world. So the Jews were scattered among the nations, but it was all according to God's plan. Yes, if we hadn't sinned, we would have gone immediately into the land, and the glory of God would have been revealed throughout the entire world, to all of the nations. There wouldn't have been a need to teach the nations. It would have been a revealed glory that the whole world would be serving one God and speaking one pure tongue. But because of the exile, it was not to be. So God had a different plan. He said, I'm going to do it in a different way. You're going to be scattered among the nations, and it's going to be your job to bring converts. You're going to be teaching the nations of the world the ways, the belief in one God, the repudiation of idolatry, and moral behavior. Furthermore, in the Gemara, in the Talmud, we find one of the sages, Rabbi Eliezer, saying that the only reason why the Holy One, blessed be He, exiled the children of Israel among the nations was in order that they should gather converts, to make converts. Now, what are converts? A convert could be a ger tzedek. It's like Ruth, who comes and says, I'm going to accept everything. I'm going to be a righteous convert and be just as obligated to the Torah as any other Jew. There's also another level of a convert, a ger toshav. That's one person from the nation of the world who says, I'm going to follow the 7 laws of Noah, but repudiating idolatry, not blaspheming God, and not killing, not stealing, etc., etc. I'm going to follow a moral code that was in the covenant that God forged with Noah, a covenant that was never rescinded. And that is also a convert. So that's very clearly in the Talmud. It says, based on the verse in Hosea chapter 2, it says, I have seeded you among the nations. Why? When a farmer throws a handful of seed, he only does it to reap back 100 times more. Not just the seeds, but the produce. So God took His seed, His holy seed of the Jewish people, and scattered them among the nations in order that they should raise consciousness, raise converts. This is what Abraham did quite clearly. Abraham, he converted the men, and Sarah converted the women. Furthermore, we have another hint of the obligation of a Jewish person to teach his fine non-Jewish friends the Torah. in the law of tefillin. The Jew wears phylacteries on the arm and on the head. The arm tefillin, it says, it says in the Torah, L'cha la'ot. Vaya l'cha la'ot. And for you it shall be a sign. For you a sign, but not for anyone else. So the arm is a private sign. That's the private faith. But then on the head tefillin, it says what it's revealed. It's on the head. Our sages said that these are the tefillin on the head, and of them it is said in the 29th chapter of Deuteronomy, V'ra'u kol ha'me'aretz ki shem Adonai nikra alecha v'yaru mimeka. And all of the children, all of the nations of the world shall see that the sign, the name of God is inscribed upon you, and they shall fear you. That's the tefillin of the head. And the tefillin of the head have 4 compartments to them. That's in order to teach that a man of Israel should teach anybody who comes to him the faith of God. Because the tefillin are also called totafot. And totafot is a very hard word to translate. Another word for the phylacteries is totafot. Rashi finds it very difficult to explain the word totafot. Menachem, one of the great medieval scholars, says it's from the Lashon v'hatef el darom, to preach to the south, to speak. It could be from the word for for fluid that's dripping, like fine oil. That the one who sees these totafot, these tefillin bound on the head of a Jew, will remember the miracles that were done for the Jews, and will remember the faith in one God, and the Jew will speak of them. So if somebody considers the history of the world, another point that Rabbi Shwartz brings up, and with this we'll conclude, he says that whenever you had a great flowering of the Jewish nation, it was always by one of the centers of the world population. Abraham lived in Mesopotamia. That was the center of world civilization at that time. In Egypt was later on, when the Jews were in the generations after Abraham. About 7 generations later, Moses was in Egypt. That was the center of world civilization. In Alexandria, in Cairo. Then after the destruction of the temple in the days of the first temple, they were exiled to Babylon. Babylon was the greatest civilization in that area. And then after that there was the exile to Persia and Greece. After the destruction of the second temple, it was Rome. Rome was in control then, and the Jews were scattered among the Roman Empire and in the city of Rome itself. In the days of Spain, Spain was the center of the world civilization in the first of the 1000th year of the millennium. We also find the Jews there until 1492. And then in Europe, was in the age of discovery, in the age of the colonial age, the Jews, their center was in Europe. And then later in the modern era, most of the Jewish populations were the United States of America, which was most recently controlling the world. So we always find that the exile of the Jews is right in the center of the controlling civilization. We don't find it currently. Japan and China in the East are not controlling the world civilization, but they're coming. They're on their way. So maybe the Jews are going to be there too. Who knows? Let's hope the Messiah comes first and will already be settled in the land of Israel fully. So because of the economic and the cultural control of these civilizations, the Jews are also there for a reason. And the idea that we're proposing here is that it's a spiritual reason. It's in order that we're close to the central civilization, in order to spread the faith of one God and the morality of the Torah to the place that can spread it out and that can bring it to the rest of the world in the most efficient way. That's God's supernal providence has directed the Jews to these places in order that the Jews can influence the world for the better. This is Betzalel Edwards from the Noahide court in Jerusalem, wishing you peace and blessing.